Welcome to Pierce and Show's Personal Injury Postscript.
Hello, and welcome to Pierce and Schaus Personal Injury Postscript with Chris Schaus. Chris is a Baton Rouge personal injury attorney who has been representing clients across southeastern Louisiana for more than 30 years. He began his career in insurance defense before founding Pierce and Schaus in 1992, and today his practice focuses on helping injury victims rebuild their lives with clarity, compassion, and strong trial advocacy. I'm Heidi Mack, and in this episode today, we're talking about how motorcycle accident cases differ from car accident cases in Louisiana. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris. We really appreciate you being here.
Good morning, Heidi. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad to talk with you this morning.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Well, Chris, then let's get started here. So, first of all, what made you want to become an attorney, and why have you devoted your career to helping accident victims?
Well, Heidi, I'd always worked in construction, coming up through school and so forth, and even for a few years after high school, and I thought that's what I would do. I guess I kind of sensed as I progressed along, I wanted something that had a little more reach and more challenge to it, and the right to work law in Louisiana had kind of soured the economics on construction and industrial construction in particular. And so I decided I had to do something different if I was going to stay challenged and be fulfilled. And that's what pulled me into it. Got into undergraduate school and like most of us, started learning more about who I was and who I was going to be. And I saw in my studies, I gravitated towards what the school said, what pre-law. Logic, persuasive speaking, history, uh, technical writing, those sorts of things. And and so as I progressed through undergraduate, I thought more about it. And I was graduating out in 1987. The economy was not great. And I decided to take a look and investigate it. Took the LSAT, made the applications, got accepted. It was the most challenging thing I'd ever done. I was definitely in the deep end of the pool when I got to law school. Uh, but it's been a great ride. I'm 34 years in now, and I'm still challenged. I still enjoy it, and it gives me a chance to. We work a lot of small cases, certainly, but several times a year we have significant cases, and sometimes able to really turn a client or a family's life around from a bad situation. And that's tremendously satisfying kind of a thing to be able to do. The work suits me. I like a scuffle, and I like trial work. We try a lot of cases, and we're able to help people. We have a lot of folks we've helped for 2 or 3 generations of their family.
That's amazing. I love hearing where everyone comes from, and I love that where you started from construction and went into becoming a lawyer. That's incredible. You don't hear that too often, I don't think.
It was a big change, but it's worked well for me.
Wonderful. Well, let's get to what we're here about for this episode. So, what are the biggest legal differences between motorcycle accidents and car accidents in Louisiana?
Well, we're in the South, and so more or less, it's always riding season here. Um, I'm a lifetime motorcyclist. I work a fair amount of motorcycle accidents. Obviously, the vehicle dynamics are much different. Um, the biggest, in terms of physics, the biggest difference is motorcycles, particularly now, are very high performance, but they're still limited by that tiny contact patch. For a lot of motorcycles, the contact patch, the amount of rubber in contact with the pavement, is as much or even less than a single tire on a car or truck. And so all the steering inputs, braking inputs, acceleration, everything works through that tiny contact patch. That means you're extremely vulnerable if there is oil, for example, spilled on the road, or oil with water on it, or any of those sorts of things. Um, and anybody who's done much road riding has experienced that. Mid-turn, you see something on the road, and you're like, "Oh wow, that's a smashed oil can." Uh, and and that means there's probably oil around it. And that front tire hits it, and it just skates across it.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing that catches people out. Um, moving other than contact patch, uh, you've got big acceleration, big braking, and the ability, in a lot of states out west and otherwise, there's lane splitting.
Yeah.
Motorcycles by nature have much less visual mass, so drivers overlook them.
Mhm.
Motorcycles can make unexpected moves. Lane splitting in this part of the country freaks people out. You see it done, and car drivers, really react with surprise to it. All that is to say, motorcycles can show up in a field of vision where they're not expected. That has people tending to overlook them. It has people tending to react with a startle, and so they sometimes get in difficult or different situations than what people expect. So you got visibility issues, you got contact point issues, you got vehicle dynamics and movement issues, and and frankly, there are some people who just don't care about motorcyclists. Hey, that motorcycle, that thing is too small to be a threat to me. I'm going to pretend it's not there. Here, we constantly see the classic left turn. Somebody in an SUV makes a left turn across a motorcycle's path, uh, typically with tragic results. Less visual mass. Bikes nowadays are not necessarily loud anymore, and so you don't get that aural warning, and they can roll up on you without you hearing. So there's a lot that's different about them. Where they show up, how they show up, how often, how quickly. Um, and we have a fair amount of motorcycle traffic here. Not as much as in some parts of the world, Europe, for example,
Yeah.
but still a good bit. Still a good bit here because of the weather and so forth. We have in Louisiana a lot of problems with our roadways. We don't maintain roads. We don't fund road maintenance, um, and that's a particular challenge for motorcycles because of that small contact patch and less ability to accommodate rain ruts, logging truck, heavy truck ruts,
Yeah.
surface imperfections. So a lot of different issues that apply for motorcycles.
Yeah, no, being up on the East Coast, we have mostly just the summer. Fun fact about myself, I grew up riding with my dad, and I have my motorcycle license, and my best friend's father does. I've ridden with them. Our one of our two of our biggest things up here for motorcycles that's different for most is um, uh, fresh cut grass. People mowing their lawn,
And blowing it in the street.
right in the street, and I've seen lots of accidents because of that, and then, I mean, people have to worry about deer in any vehicle, but, it's gonna be much more of an issue with the big deer about the same size as the motorcycle, you know? So,
The deer strikes is certainly an issue here.
uh,
Once you get out of Baton Rouge, a lot of folks, a lot of motorcyclists head out to the country. They want to get a nice ride in the country, and
yeah.
piney woods here, lots and lots of deer, uh, and so it's an issue here. We're starting to have enough black bear that
Oh,
there's some
wow.
problems with that, and I saw a motorcyclist with a black bear strike just the other day. So yeah, those things are a lot different.
So, I mean, obviously, we're talking about it, it can be much more severe. How does that affect the value of the personal injury claim?
Well, the fact that you don't have that protective structure around you
Mhm.
uh, obviously means you're much more susceptible, much more likely to sustain a serious injury. And the other thing is separation from the vehicle.
Mhm.
As I mentioned earlier, with the left turn and motorist kind of thing, you know, the motorcyclist is ejected downstream, and and maybe he just slides to the shoulder, or maybe he's struck while he's separated from the bike.
Yeah.
It tends to make for much more injury severity. And in Louisiana, we're a poor state economically, and we have problems enforcing our insurance requirement. And even where people are in compliance, where they're legal, uh, our minimum limits are $15,000. A $15,000 liability policy might get you through a minor fender bender with some soft tissue injuries if you're in a car, but it's unlikely to be adequate insurance for a motorcycle collision. I talk to motorcycle groups, and I talk to my clients and to really anybody that'll listen. If you're going to ride a motorcycle on the street, you need to make special insurance arrangements. You need to have good uninsured motorist coverage, underinsured, uninsured, so that where your at fault driver doesn't have adequate coverage, your supplemental coverage is there to make up the difference. I closed what by all appearances was a fairly minor motorcycle accident just a few months ago. Um, no contact between the vehicles. The car's unexpected motion was enough that the motorcyclist laid the bike down, and no contact, no impact. But he had enough trauma from that and enough pre-existing conditions that he required a spinal surgery from it, and so significant serious damages even without contact. In that case, a bystander, a passerby, said because the at fault left the scene, he said, "I'll bring him back," and so we were able to identify the at fault driver and get that case resolved. But even with no contact, very serious injuries, and that's a real problem, and people really need to look at their insurance.
Yeah, no, when we're talking about fault as well, in Louisiana, accident cases often involve comparative fault. Can you explain what that is? What that means for motorcycle riders?
So historically, like a lot of states, Louisiana long ago was a contributory negligence state, and I say that to show the contrast. Contributory negligence regime means if the claimant is guilty of any fault, they are barred from presenting their claim. We left that regime many, many years ago, more than 30 years ago, and went to what was then a pure comparative fault regime. It's been modified a little bit over the years, but it is still a relatively pure comparative fault regime. And that means any person, any cause can be attributed fault, and our courts, whether judge or jury, our fact finders, will slice that fault as fine as needed by the circumstance, by the facts of the accident. A motorcyclist might be guilty of excessive speed, exceeding the speed. But the accident happened when the adverse motorist made a left turn across the front of him. That motorist says, well, yeah, I made a left turn across the path of an oncoming vehicle, but I feel like that motorist was speeding. If they can prove that up, they might shift some. That motorist might pick up 10%, 5, even 1%. Um, there's no limit. They can slice it as fine as they wish. And so you might get a judgment that says that left-turner motorist was 85%, and the motorcyclist and excessive speed is attributed or apportioned 10%. They might apportion some fault to the defect in the road service. Department of Transportation might get a 5% finding there or something like that. Can split it as many ways as they need to. That's pure comparative fault. The thing for folks to know is even where you may have some percentage, that claim is still worth presenting, is still worth having evaluated. It is not the case that if you have any fault at all or suspect or feel or worry that you might, oh, well, you just can't do anything. That's not the case these days. Mm-hmm. And best to get an expert to take a look at it if you're in that situation.
Of course, of course. So then in these situations, how do insurance companies or juries sometimes view a motorcycle rider? Like, how can that affect the claim as well?
Well, I've seen it. I've seen it once or twice with judge or jury. Uh, Juries occasionally, you'll get a jury that's hostile to motorcyclists for one reason or another, either for demographic reasons or perhaps because they had an experience or knew some rider that they didn't like or something like that. Historically, uh, there was some hostility towards motorcycles just from pop culture stuff. If you go back far enough, the Wild Ones, Hell's Angels, those sorts of things. More recently, Sons of Anarchy. Portrayals of motorcyclists in pop culture are not always positive or favorable or accurate. I think that's less of a factor. In the post World War II environment, a lot of those fellas came home and got on Harleys or military surplus Harleys, that kind of thing. And there was a kind of a particular culture there. Now that has faded. Bike riders are still kind of insular. They like to deal with other motorcyclists. Uh, but there's a lot more. There's a lot of sport bikes. There's more young people. There's scooter riders. There's touring riders. Um, and truly, I think that numbers wise, the old classic Harley riders there's less of them on the road. Obviously, Sturgis still has a big turnout. Daytona gets a big turnout. All of those places do. Myrtle Beach on the East Coast. Uh, so there's still plenty of that, but the demographics have changed. Popular perceptions, some, maybe not so much.
A little bit. Yeah. No, my best friend's father's a veteran and they had a veteran bike club, but they always like to try to do like toy drives and stuff so that, every so often people driving by them would see just teddy bears and, things on their bikes just to try to get rid of that stigma. So I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Um, there's so much information that you have to give, but while we get here towards the end of this, are there steps that some motorcyclists can take right after a crash to protect their legal rights during this?
The thing that makes me crazy is when I'm talking with somebody after a crash and I say, "Hey, did anybody stop? Did anybody say, 'Look, I saw it. Do you need help?'" Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. There was two guys that stopped and I talked to them a little bit, but at the time I didn't realize I was hurt. And so I told them, no, no, I didn't need anything. Just go on. Oh, okay, okay, feel good. I'm glad you didn't feel like you were hurt. Then, did you get their name or contact phone number? Anything? No, no. I just sent them on their way. Boy, that's frustrating. You didn't realize it at the scene, but that driver has changed his story since then, and now there's a liability dispute, and we really need some supporting witness testimony. Everybody pretty much has a phone in their pocket these days, has a camera in their pocket. Get that thing out. Back away. Get a big scene picture and show where the vehicles came to rest and kind of how they relate to each other. Get a picture of that other driver in case they got a load on and the passenger's fixing to slide over and claim that they were driving. Get license plate numbers. Anybody that's at the scene, get a picture of them. Ask them if you can get their phone number. Don't let that evidence get away. It's a frustrating thing. It's very hard to reconstruct if it's there and you let it get away. So those things are that's what frustrates me most immediately on these situations. Try to preserve evidence. Obviously, you've got to get your bike out of the road, and you got to get stabilized medically. But if there are people there, don't let them get away from you without getting a picture, getting contact information. Uh, Young people pull their phones out and take pictures. It's my generation that says, "Well, I just waited," and all the evidence went away, and then I thought about it. So that's the thing. Don't let the evidence leave the scene. The other thing is be careful in be careful in giving your statement to the officers. Uh, they generally are pretty motorcycle friendly, but you don't know that. You don't know, and so you need to be careful. Be accurate. Don't be wordy. Keep it short. Those are
Well,
important. Jackson.
no, this is great advice. I mean, again, we just touched the surface. There's definitely so much information I can tell that you can give us, Chris, and I really appreciate it. And for those out there listening, thanks for joining us on Pearson Schaus Personal Injury Postscript. If you've been injured in a motorcycle or car accident in Louisiana, don't face the insurance companies alone. Visit pearsonschaus.com to connect with Chris and his team. And be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review if today's episode helped you. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris. We really appreciate everything that you've given us.
Thank you, Heidi. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.